Hello and welcome to this special No One Likes Us Talking podcast. I'm joined by the monthly podcast host Phil Coleman. Phil, in the last show, discussed how he lost his friend and former Millwall striker John Lyons. Phil wanted to speak in more detail about this and the circumstances that caused John to take his own life. Before I've talked with Phil, let's hear from our friends at Sands United.
We know that some men can struggle to talk about how they're feeling after the death of a baby. We hope that by building trust and a common bond, by playing together as a team, many more will be able to break their silence about baby loss and help others to do the same. Sands United FC has already saved the lives of men left feeling like they had no one to turn to in their grief. Are you a father who has lost a child? Talk to Sands United. They will help. Contact them on sufclondon@gmail.com. That's sufclondon@gmail.com. They will help.
Hi Phil, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Gary, for having me on again.
No problem. I know this is really tough for you, but I know you wanted to speak in more detail about John and also put an appeal out to the Millwall fans.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I touched on it in the previous podcast, and it was quite close to the anniversary of John taking his own life on the 11th of November 1982. John was only 26, and since 82, it's not haunted me, but it's always been there. He was a bloke who, if I give you a little bit of background, take you through what he was like, his character, his personality, and then a needless tragedy at the end of it. And then hopefully I can tie it all up to sort of prevent somebody else from doing the same. But I mean, John is so much about John Lyons. Wrexham, born and bred. He won the Welsh Cup. He had under 18 and under 21 Welsh caps. He had a Division 3 championship medal. He played in some European Cup games on the back of that Welsh Cup winners medal. I'd just made my debut in the end of the 78-79 season, and George Petchey bought John from Wrexham. He brought him in the summer of 79. So we had John for the 79-80 season. What a great striker. I'm sure he was a role model for us younger players. He was slightly bit older than us. I think he was about 4 years older than me. He was so fit. He was strong. He was quick. In his 63 games, he scored 24 goals. That's not a bad ratio, particularly when you're moving from a little village in North Wales to London and staying in digs. He settled really well because John's character, he just got on with everybody. I'll tie in something that he did, which if you were there as a Millwall fan, you would remember it. We played Shrewsbury in the FA Cup, and I played up the right side of midfield out of position, but it didn't matter because John Lyons bagged the hat-trick against Shrewsbury in FA Cup tie that day. And he's hit one in, it went like a rocket, and everybody remembers that rocket free kick. Fantastic hat-trick, 1-5-1. And after the game, I've taken the match ball round. I don't know why it was me. I just did it. I thought it was the right thing to do. So I took the match ball off a referee and I got all the players to sign it. Everybody that played in that game, they all signed the ball. And we gave it to John and thought no more of it. At the end of the season, I think we might have been struggling for some cash, and Cambridge United came in. And again, I think they paid 50,000 for John, which was no mean money back then. And he'd been at Cambridge a few months and we kept in touch over the phone. But he phoned me one night and he said, Colchester United have come in for me. What's the club like? Well, I'd been sold and I'd moved up there and I'd been playing for a while. And this was early 1982. And we got a really good side. We had Kevin Bremner. We just brought in Kevin Beattie, the ex-England legend. Alan Hunter, the ex-Northern Ireland, was centre-back player manager. Ian Allinson, who later ended up with Arsenal, and Tony Adcock, who went to Manchester City. So we had a good side. And I sort of like, Lyons, he coming to play with us. I'll have a bit of that. You know, this goal scorer, this bloke. Yeah, we could seriously score goals with Roy McDonough, a big target man, with Kevin Bremner and John Lyons playing off of him. So, yeah, John, it's a good little club. It's quiet. We only get 3,000 or 4,000 crowds, but they'll make you welcome. And it's a nice little town to live in. And I sort of like, to this day, I've got a little bit of guilt because I convinced him to join Colchester United with the tragic events later on. So I have got this little bit of guilt that's lived with me all these years. But what a brilliant bloke. Funny, big character, great company. If you were in John's company, you'd have a laugh. Totally professional on the pitch, 100% fit, as I said. But some of the things he did, the last time we were out with him, he got a beer mat and he basically cut a little strip out of it and stuck it on the end of his nose and stood up in the pub and shouted out, "Who the hell threw this?" And just had the place in stitches. And if you know him, he was the North Wales champion of everything. If we were playing table tennis, he was the North Wales champion. If we were flicking peas off a plate, he was the North Wales champion. If we were reading a book, I'm the reading champion of North Wales. So Lyons, he had us in stitches because he was the North Wales champion of everything. God bless him. And I'm lucky to have played with him at 2 clubs and lucky to have called him a friend, to be honest with you. But we had no indication of how he was feeling. None whatsoever. As I say, the night we were out with him, we had no indications at all. I mean, I've since picked up 1 or 2 people said he was laughing, but there was nothing in his eyes. Well, I never saw that. I just saw the John Lyons bouncing around and being as lively as ever. 10 days before he took his own life, he curled a shot, a 20-yarder in general play past Peter Shilton at Southampton in a cup game. You know, he was on fire. He could score goals from anywhere. And I think he only played 22 games from the start of that season for Colchester, and he scored 10 or 12 goals, you know, almost 1 every 2 games. So there was nothing in anything to indicate that he was having troubles in his head. And on the Tuesday night, which would have been the 9th of November, we beat Chester 1-0. And for Lyonsy, as a Wrexham lad, to beat Chester, that's like Millwall beating West Ham. That was a big occasion for John. So we always had a little Wednesday night out, nothing stupid, but we'd go out on Wednesday, we'd have a few beers in the town, and we dropped him off. I don't know, it might have been 12 o'clock at night, we'd have a few beers. And again, I just can't reiterate enough that he was no indications, funny as usual. But he'd also just bought a new house. He'd actually bought a beer barrel for his housewarming party, which was coming up at Christmas. His girlfriend was moving down from Cambridge to move in with him. And honestly, nothing at all. No, nothing from me that indicated how he was feeling. We dropped him off, as I say, early hours of Thursday morning, and me and Roy McDonough have gone back to our digs here just down the road. Had a good night's kip, woke up, went into training at 10 o'clock the next morning on a Thursday morning. And as I've walked into the changing rooms, all the other players are sitting there, white-faced, total silence. "What's the matter with you lot?" And the captain, Mickey Cook, came in and said, "You two don't know, do you?" "No what?" "John hung himself last night." Well, if ever there was a time to hit the floor because your legs buckled, we did. Me and Roy. Whoa, sorry, guys.
Take some time to feel if you need it.
It still hits today. Apparently, John had gone home and said goodbye to us in the cab, and he phoned his parents to say, "I'm the black sheep of the family." He wasn't. They absolutely worshipped him. They followed him around the country, watched all the games, phoned his girlfriend and said, "You don't love me." Well, she was moving from Cambridge to Colchester to live with him, and he something had gone in his mind. It's something the wires had crossed, and he'd hung himself. And I found out from police officers, my own GP, they called my GP out to certify him, and he'd necked a bottle of rum, and there were claw marks around his neck, which basically indicated that he hadn't meant to do it. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. Certainly the facts are there. The autopsy was there. John Lyons was 0% body fat, fit, healthy 26-year-old with some claw marks around his neck and a bottle of rum from 1 o'clock in the morning on that Thursday. As a club, players, friends, fans, absolutely devastated. And what made things worse, if ever you could make things worse, was the FA refused to call our game off on the Saturday. So we had to travel up to Tranmere. And if any of those Tranmere fans ever hear this podcast, I'm sorry, guys, but you had no chance that day because we put on black armbands and the final call at 5-3 was, "This one's for John." I think we were 4-0 up after 20 minutes. We smashed them. After 25, 30 minutes, Roy McDonough threw up. He had to go off, devastated. So those were the circumstances. We attended his funeral a little while later in Buckley, in just north of Wrexham. The turnout, I think the England manager was there. The great and good of football were there. But John was held in high esteem across the whole country. Looking at the turnout, it literally was standing room only. The outside was full up. Roy, myself, and Alan Hunter, the manager, we sat in the front row, and it was an amazing turnout with his family, friends, and, as I say, the great and the good of football. As things transpired, we carried on playing that season. Every game was for John. We just missed out on promotion, which would have been a nice thing to do for him, given the goals that he'd scored for us. But a year later, I was loaned out. I fell out with the Colchester manager, and I was loaned out to Wrexham, believe it or not. And I'd been in the town about a week, and I thought, I'm going to pop over to Buckley and I'm going to see John's mum and dad. So I popped over and knocked on the door, and his mum was making the tea, and his dad said, "Nah, stuff that. I won't be a minute." And he's gone down the road, and he's come back with 24 cans of beer. This is about 2:00 after training, and we've necked the whole lot. And we were just waxing lyrical about John. We were talking about John, Millwall, Wrexham, Welsh football, Ian Rush, whatever. Honestly, it was an amazing afternoon. But the one thing that struck me, his mum and dad took me up to his bedroom. When we opened the door, nothing had moved, nothing had changed. And there was John's under 21 shirts and his Welsh caps. And there was the ball from the Shrewsbury 5-1 hat-trick, all signed by us players, still on this mantelpiece in his bedroom, which again hurts because there's a little part of me has always been in Buckley, and it's that ball. I went back every Wednesday. If we didn't have a game, I went back every Wednesday afternoon, and I took another lad who came on loan, Steve Wright, from Colchester, and he knew John as well. So the pair of us used to have a couple of beers with John's dad every Wednesday for my 4 months that I was on loan. And since then, I've gone back to Wrexham at least once a year, whenever I can, to be honest. And I've been to his graveside, and it's a lovely stone with his mum, Donnie, and his dad, and John. And there is a lovely piece, flower holder, metal flower holder, from Millwall fans and supporters. And I can post that picture of that. I don't know who's put that up there. I don't know if it was Millwall Supporters Club. I don't know if it was an individual fan. But that just tells you how highly Millwall fans regarded John, that they would go to Buckley in North Wales and put a permanent memorial for Millwall fans on his gravestone. That's going to live with me. I've spoken about John to young people in schools where I work, teach PE, and I often mention John. I had a cousin as well on my granddad's side who took his own life and said nothing. And believe it or not, I've had my own anxiety and stresses and strains. I come out of professional football and I had no idea what I was going to do. And you do get incredibly anxious, and your brain plays games with you. What am I going to do? Is this the end of me? You know, I was lucky. I applied for a job, and somebody took a chance on me. I've heard from soldiers and service personnel that they have the same when they leave the armed forces. It's such a structured life. Football is a structured life, and when you come out of it, it's quite traumatic. I would say mine was traumatic, but I certainly had grave anxiety. What am I going to do next? My brother Nick had the same. He played for Millwall, and I didn't realise until a few years ago that when he left football, he had a bit of anxiety as well, because you're told what to do, when to turn up, how to train, how much to weigh, what to eat, when to turn up for the game, how to play the game, how to rest, what to drink. And when that structure's gone, the anxiety kicked in with me and Nick. But obviously it was worse with John, and I don't know what demons were going through John's head. But I can tell you now, his mum and dad worshipped him. His girlfriend was great. He had so much to live for. So all I'm going to say to guys, in the macho world of football, and it's particularly you men out there, nobody spoke back then. You were a bloke, in inverted commas, and it was weak to speak up. I'll put this to you. If John Lyons had spoke up any time leading up to that event, he'd still be with us today, and we'd be talking live with him instead of talking about him. But I want to use John's memory and take away this macho world of football, and take away this macho thing with men in particular. And I'm sure there are girls and young ladies and women out there that feel the same. I beg you, just speak out. tell somebody you're struggling. Tell somebody you can't cope. You know, speak up. Tell somebody, anyone. And there's an old saying, a problem shared and halved. Well, it's better than that these days. We've got people that will listen, will point you in the right direction. And I just want to say, can we use John Lyons as a catalyst for speaking up? I don't want another Lyons life wasted like John Lyons. So thanks, Gary. Hopefully that will help, might save at least one person's life by speaking up. And that's for John Lyons. Thanks very much.
Wow. Thanks, Phil. I can only imagine how tough it is to talk about this. And honestly, that what you've just said there is, if John's looking down, I'm sure he's proud of you, mate. And if he could, he'd give you a big hug and say thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you again. And we will close by listening to our friends at the Proper Blokes Club. Take care out there, and thanks again, Phil.
Hello, I'm Scott and I founded the Proper Blokes Club. What is that I hear you say? Well, it's for men who have experienced or going through a tough time and fancy going for a walk and a talk. Or it could be you just want to get back on top of your game, maybe feeling lonely, or you could even be new to the area and just want to get out for a walk and a talk. This could be for you. So if you'd like to join us, we run sessions every Thursday, Sunday, starting at HMS Belfast, walking along the Thames up towards Surrey Quays. If you guys are on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, find the Proper Blokes Club, give it a like, give it a follow, tag and share with your friends, or if you'd like to do it the old-fashioned way, you can call Scott on 07397 501110. That's 07397 501110, and we can make arrangements for you to come along. So I look forward to seeing you joining us soon at the Proper Blokes Club.